The Galactic Council's fleet loomed above Earth like a dark shadow in the sky, its ships as vast as cities, and equipped with technologies far beyond anything humans could imagine. The stars seemed to grow dimmer as the fleet hovered in orbit, waiting for their commander's signal. In the main command room of their flagship, the Emperor of the Galactic Council stood, his back turned to a large window that overlooked the planet below. The image of Earth was beautiful, but that beauty was about to be shattered. The Emperor's voice was cold and dismissive as he gazed at the image of Earth. "Human resistance has been feeble, pathetic," he scoffed, his words filled with contempt. "Their leaders tremble, their soldiers flee. I give them one last chance to surrender, or I will order the final blow." The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity for decades, believing them to be a primitive species, weak, divided, and incapable of defending themselves against the might of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Yet Earth had fought back. The humans had no advanced technology like the Council's, no vast fleets or armies, but they fought with a ferocity and determination that the aliens could not comprehend. The Emperor's generals were just as confident in the Council's victory. They laughed as they watched Earth's defenses crumble, their once proud cities being reduced to rubble. They believed that humanity's fate had already been sealed. To them, it was just a matter of time before Earth was no more than a forgotten speck in the cosmos. But on Earth, the situation was far from hopeless. Deep within the heart of the planet, in a top-secret underground facility, a different kind of meeting was taking place. The War Council of Earth had gathered in emergency session, their faces grim. The situation was dire. Earth's defenses were on the brink of collapse. The aliens had wiped out nearly half of humanity's major cities, and the remaining forces were scattered, unable to mount a proper defense. The Galactic Council had weapons of mass destruction, AI-driven fleets, and superior technology, and humanity had nothing to match them. In the war room, the air was thick with tension. The generals and political leaders exchanged worried glances, knowing that their options were running out. They had fought to the last, but the enemy was relentless. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't stop the incoming alien forces. The thought of surrendering had crossed some minds, but the leaders knew that giving in meant total annihilation. The aliens would not spare them. Standing at the head of the table was Captain Marcus Rhodes, a seasoned and battle-hardened military officer. His deep brown eyes were filled with determination, but his face was etched with worry. He had seen the horrors of war, and he knew what was at stake. The lives of billions were hanging in the balance, and Earth had only one last card to play. Marcus was known for his bravery and his ability to lead in the most desperate of circumstances, but even he was starting to feel the weight of the war. His mind raced as he thought of the options available. There was only one hope left, an ancient weapon that had been hidden away for generations, a weapon so powerful that it could turn the tide of the war, but at a tremendous cost: the human battleships. These ships were unlike anything else in the galaxy. Built in secret during the early days of humanity's space exploration, the human battleships were enormous, heavily armed warships designed for one purpose only: total destruction. They were armed with advanced weaponry, capable of wiping out entire fleets in seconds. They were faster than anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered, and they could cloak themselves from enemy detection. They were humanity's secret weapon, and they were about to be humanity's last hope. As Marcus stood before the Earth War Council, he knew that unleashing the battleships was humanity's only chance to survive. The problem was that no one knew the full consequences of activating them. The weapon was so dangerous that it had been kept hidden for decades, and some of the council members were reluctant to use it. They feared that the sheer destructive power of the ships could destroy not only the enemy, but also the very planet they were fighting to protect. A gruff, older general at the table spoke up, his voice filled with hesitation. "Captain Rhodes, we cannot unleash these ships. We've never tested them in combat. We don't know the full extent of their power and the collateral damage." "General, we don't have a choice," Marcus interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "We've tried everything else. The aliens are already at our doorstep. If we don't fight back with everything we have, Earth will fall. We've seen the destruction they've caused. We know what they're capable of. If we don't act now." The general looked down, clearly uncomfortable with the idea, but Marcus pressed on. "I've seen these weapons in action. They're our only hope. If we don't unleash the battleships now, humanity will be nothing but a footnote in the history of this galaxy." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some were for it, others were against. But Marcus knew that time was running out. The Galactic Council's fleet was already moving toward Earth, and in a matter of hours, the final assault would begin. They had no more time to debate. The final decision came down to the Council's leader, President Eleanor Hayes. She was a strong and resolute leader, but even she felt the weight of this choice. The battleships were humanity's last hope, but unleashing them could mean the destruction of everything they were fighting to protect. With a heavy heart, she spoke. "Captain Rhodes, we are placing the fate of Earth in your hands. Unleash the battleships, but know this: if we fail, if Earth falls, it will be because we chose to play with forces beyond our control." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I understand, Madam President, and I promise you, we will fight with everything we have. For Earth." As Marcus turned to leave the war room, his heart was heavy with the responsibility that now lay on his shoulders. The battleships were humanity's last resort, but using them meant stepping into the unknown. What would the consequences be? Would they succeed, or would they doom themselves in the process? As he stepped into the command center, the doors closed behind him. He faced his crew, a group of seasoned soldiers and engineers who had worked tirelessly to prepare the battleships for combat. They were ready. They knew the stakes, and they knew that failure was not an option. "All right, everyone," Marcus said, his voice firm but filled with determination. "This is it. We're the last line of defense. We've got one shot at this, and we're not going to waste it. Humanity's fate rests in our hands." The crew nodded, their faces determined, knowing that they were about to engage in the most important battle of their lives. As Marcus took his seat in the command chair, he looked out of the window of the ship. Outside, the stars seemed to stretch on forever. But in that moment, all he could focus on was Earth below, his home, his people, and the chance to save them from extinction. "We don't have a choice anymore," Marcus muttered under his breath. "If we don't, Earth will be nothing but ashes." The countdown began. The last hope of humanity was about to be unleashed. The Titan's wrath loomed silently in space, its hull reflecting the distant stars like a shadow stretching across the cosmos. It was one of Earth's ultimate weapons, a colossal battleship the size of a small moon. Its sleek design was a testament to human ingenuity. Yet the ship's silent power was more than just its appearance. Equipped with cloaking devices, plasma cannons capable of incinerating entire fleets in a single shot, and advanced eye-controlled targeting systems, the Titan's wrath was humanity's most devastating creation. A ship built to win wars, if it could survive the trials ahead. Inside, the crew worked with quiet precision, their faces bathed in the soft glow of holographic consoles and monitors. The ship's vast corridors hummed with power, and despite the high-tech instruments and futuristic technology around them, the air was thick with tension. This was no longer just a mission. This was the fight for survival. As Captain Marcus Rhodes walked through the command center, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The fate of Earth rested in his hands, and the pressure was almost suffocating. Marcus stepped into the center of the operations room, where his crew awaited him. They were a mix of battle-hardened veterans and young officers, their faces set with grim determination. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Clara Hayes, stood beside him, her eyes locked on the main view screen showing the vast emptiness of space. A small fleet of alien warships was approaching Earth's orbit, their shapes unmistakably menacing. "We're cloaked and ready, Captain," Clara said, her voice steady. though Marcus could see the edge of anxiety beneath her calm demeanor. "Activate the plasma cannons and prepare the targeting systems," Marcus ordered. "We're going to hit them fast, hit them hard, and then Cloaking devices online," said Chief Engineer James Ballin, his voice barely a whisper as he input the final commands. "We're invisible to their sensors, Captain." Marcus nodded, though he knew the stakes. For all the power the Titan's wrath held, it wasn't invincible. The cloaking system would make them undetectable to the alien fleet for only so long. Once they fired, the element of surprise would vanish, and the battle would begin in earnest. "Steady, everyone," Marcus said. "We don't get a second chance." With a final command, the Titan's wrath vanished from the view of the enemy fleet, cloaking itself in the void of space. The silence in the command center was deafening as everyone waited for the first contact. Then, without warning, Marcus gave the order. "Fire." The ship's plasma cannons roared to life, and the Titan's wrath unleashed its first volley. The energy beams shot through space at the speed of light, slamming into the unsuspecting alien warships. The results were immediate. Explosions erupted in the void, their like visible even from the dark side of Earth. Several alien destroyers were wiped out in a matter of seconds, their shields failing before they could even react. The Titan's wrath was a shadow of death, appearing from nowhere, striking without mercy. "Direct hits, Captain," reported Clara, her voice tinged with awe. "We've taken out 3 destroyers already." But as Marcus watched the alien ships break apart, something stirred within him. A memory, one he tried to bury, came rushing back. He saw the faces of his fallen comrades from an earlier battle, the soldiers who had fought beside him and died for a cause they believed in. Their faces flashed before his eyes, their laughter, their courage. But it was all gone now. The war, the sacrifices, it never felt like it was enough. The enemy had always seemed to grow stronger, the cost of victory always higher. The sight of the exploding alien ships should have filled him with satisfaction, but instead, it only fueled a burning doubt. Was it worth it? Were they truly fighting for the right cause? Would humanity's survival justify the destruction they were about to unleash? Marcus forced the thoughts away. He couldn't afford doubt now. Earth was depending on him. They had no other choice. He shook his head, refocusing on the present. There was no time for second-guessing. As the Titan's wrath reappeared from the shadows, cloaking once again to avoid retaliation, Marcus clenched his fists. They had struck the first blow, but the war was far from over. The alien fleet had been shattered, but they weren't finished yet. Suddenly, an alert blared on the bridge, cutting through the tense silence. Clara's voice was sharp with alarm. "Captain, more ships, much larger. We've detected an incoming fleet, and it's massive. Much bigger than the first wave. We're not alone." Marcus' eyes narrowed. The enemy's first fleet had been a mere prelude to what was to come. The real battle had just begun. "Who are they?" Marcus demanded. Clara's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "It looks like an entire armada. Hundreds of warships. But there's one ship leading them. It's massive. It's a super dreadnought." A chill ran down Marcus' spine. The super dreadnought was legendary. An eye-controlled warship, the largest and most powerful of the Galactic Council's arsenal. If it was leading this new fleet, then humanity's hopes were about to be tested like never before. The Titan's wrath was formidable, but even it could be overwhelmed by such a force. The cloak would only buy them so much time. It was time to make a choice. Retreat and regroup, or fight and risk it all. "Prepare for combat," Marcus ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension in his chest. "We're not running. We'll stand our ground." As the Titan's wrath cloaked itself once more, Marcus knew that this would be the fight that determined humanity's future. No more second chances. The battle that was coming would be unlike anything they had ever faced. The silence of space around them seemed to press in on him, making the weight of the decision all the more real. Was Earth ready for what was to come? Was he? The doubts crept back again, but this time they were drowned out by a surge of anger. Anger for all those who had died. Anger for the threat that loomed. And most of all, anger for the alien forces that dared to think they could wipe humanity out. The Titan's wrath trembled slightly as its engines powered up. The time for thinking was over. It was time to fight. The massive super dreadnought and its armada were approaching fast, but Marcus Rhodes and his crew. As the alien fleet drew closer, Marcus clenched his fists. The real war was about to begin. The battle raged on in the cold expanse of space, but the real cost of war was becoming painfully clear to Captain Marcus Rhodes. As his crew aboard the Titan's Wrath engaged in intense combat with the alien fleet, Marcus could feel the weight of each decision, each loss, pressing down on him. He had always known war was hell, but nothing could have prepared him for the gut-wrenching reality of seeing those he cared about fall in the line of duty. The stakes were higher than ever, and the cost was more than he could bear. The Titan's Wrath sailed through space, its massive guns blasting alien warships out of existence. But in the midst of the chaos, the harsh truth of war became undeniable. Marcus watched helplessly as his close ally, Lieutenant Bonner, a fierce and loyal soldier, engaged in hand-to-hand combat on the ship's deck. The alien invaders had boarded the ship, their terrifyingly advanced technology overwhelming the human defenses. In the heart of the battle, Bonner was struck down, his life snuffed out in a single brutal moment. Marcus stood frozen for a second, his heart pounding in his chest. He had known Bonner since the beginning of the war, had fought beside him in countless battles. To see him fall was a blow that struck deep into Marcus' soul. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening in anger. But in the back of his mind, guilt and doubt lingered. How many more would die? Was this war worth the bloodshed? He could feel the burden of command bearing down on him like 1,000 tons. Every loss felt personal. Every death weighed on him. He had to keep going. He couldn't let Bonner's death be in vain. But the pain was real. The grief, the anger, and the frustration mixed together, creating a maelstrom inside him. Marcus was not a stranger to loss, but each new death was harder to bear. His mind raced as he fought to maintain focus. "Captain." Clara's voice broke through his thoughts. She was standing at his side, her eyes wide with urgency. "We've got incoming. The eye-controlled dreadnought is targeting Earth's major cities. It's starting its orbital bombardment." Marcus didn't need to ask for more details. He could see the flashing alerts on his display. The alien super dreadnought was opening fire, launching devastating laser beams toward Earth. The beams sliced through space like lightning, their destructive power impossible to ignore. As the first beams hit the atmosphere, cities were obliterated in a blinding flash of light. The energy from the attack was so intense that even from space, Marcus could see the blinding glow of the destruction. Entire cities, homes, families, everything wiped out in the blink of an eye. "Return fire," Marcus commanded, his voice sharp with a mix of fury and desperation. "Take out those ships before they destroy Earth." The Titan's Wrath surged forward, cloaking devices flickering as it materialized from the shadows once again. The crew launched a retaliatory strike, firing the ship's most powerful weapons in a desperate bid to stop the alien dreadnought. But despite their best efforts, the Titan's Wrath was up against impossible odds. The alien ships were relentless, their firepower overwhelming. Marcus gritted his teeth as his crew continued to fight, the Titan's Wrath exchanging devastating fire with the alien invaders. The destruction of Earth's cities continued in waves, each blast sending shockwaves through the hearts of those watching from space. But as much as they fought, they couldn't seem to stop the aliens. It wasn't just the battles in space that made Marcus feel the weight of the war. It was the fight within his own ship. As the alien invaders boarded, the humans were forced to engage in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The deck of the Titan's Wrath became a war zone, soldiers clashing with the alien invaders in the narrow hallways and open spaces. The humans, though outgunned, fought with desperation, using every ounce of their training and ingenuity to survive. Marcus himself joined the fray, his pulse quickening as he fought back against the alien boarding party. His plasma blade slashed through the air, cutting down invaders as they tried to breach the control center. Every strike he made felt like an act of defiance, a refusal to let his ship, his crew, and his planet fall. But despite their best efforts, the alien forces continued to press forward, overwhelming them in some areas, forcing the humans to retreat and regroup. Back at the helm, Clara called out once again, her voice tinged with panic. "Captain, Earth's major cities are being hit one after another. We've lost contact with the capital. I think they've just destroyed it. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, trying to compose himself. The loss of Earth's capital was a devastating blow. But there was no time to mourn. There was still a chance to fight back. "Get us in position to intercept the super dreadnought," he ordered. "We're going to stop it." The crew responded with mechanical precision, their movements coordinated despite the chaos around them. The Titan's Wrath was battered. The crew remained silent, knowing full well what was at stake. They were entering the final phase of the war, the moment that would decide whether humanity lived or died. The tension was thick in the air, each second stretching into eternity as the ship edged closer to the alien dreadnought. The cloaking technology they relied on was their only advantage, allowing them to sneak past the enemy's outer defenses. But the closer they got, the more dangerous it became. The AI on board the alien ship was relentless, its algorithms designed to detect and neutralize any threats before they could strike. As the Titan's Wrath neared the super dreadnought's perimeter, Marcus could feel the tension building. He could hear the nervous breaths of his crew, their hearts pounding in their chests as they prepared for the final assault. The weapons systems hummed to life, ready to unleash hell on the alien ship. "Prepare for the final push," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pressure mounting on him. "Once we make our move, there's no turning back. Make every shot count." For a moment, Marcus allowed himself to reflect on everything that had led them here. The battles they had fought, the people they had lost, and the sacrifices made to get to this point. His thoughts briefly flickered to Bonner's face, his final words echoing in Marcus' mind. "Finish what we started." It was a simple request, but one that carried the weight of everything they had fought for. Clara's voice broke his moment of reflection. "We're in position, Captain." Initiating weapons systems. The ship's systems hummed as the first round of plasma fire was launched. The shots fired from the Titan's Wrath were swift and devastating, aimed directly at the heart of the alien super dreadnought. But just as the weapons left their launchers, something unexpected happened. The alien dreadnought's eye adapted. The ship's massive shields shimmered, absorbing the incoming fire with ease. The blasts that should have crippled the alien ship barely made a dent. It was as if the alien eye had anticipated their every move. It countered their attack with devastating precision, firing back with lasers that cut through space like a knife. The Titan's Wrath shuddered as the impact rocked the ship, sending sparks flying through the control room. "Shields are holding," Clara reported, her voice tense. "But they're adapting faster than we can keep up. We need to change tactics." Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. The Titan's Wrath was powerful, but the alien dreadnought was unlike anything they had faced before. Its eye was a living entity, capable of learning and evolving with each move the humans made. It was as if the eye was alive, responding to every action, anticipating every move, and countering with deadly precision. "We can't keep playing this game," Marcus muttered to himself, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the incoming data. "We need to hit them hard and fast. We have to disable their AI before it can adapt any further." The ship's weapons systems whined as they charged up for another attack. This time, Marcus knew they couldn't waste any time. It was a do-or-die moment. He glanced at Clara, who nodded, understanding exactly what he needed. "All firepower on my mark," Marcus said, his voice steadied despite the rising tension. "Give them everything we've got. This is it." As the Titan's wrath aimed its weapons, Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle over him. This was their last chance. If they didn't destroy the AI now, the entire human race would be wiped out. There was no second chance, no retreat. Marcus shouted. The Titan's wrath unleashed its full arsenal of weapons. Plasma beams erupted from its cannons, cutting through the darkness of space. The alien super dreadnought's shields flickered as the beams struck, each shot shaking the massive ship. The humans knew they were getting closer to their goal, but it wasn't enough yet. The AI was still adapting, still countering every move they made. "We need more time," Clara said, desperation creeping into her voice. "The AI's countermeasures are too advanced." Marcus' heart pounded in his chest. There was no time. If they didn't finish this, Earth would be doomed. The thought of failure was unbearable. But as he looked at his crew, he saw the same resolve in their eyes. They were all in this together. They had no... As the battle raged on, Marcus knew that this was it. There was no turning back now. The only thing that mattered was taking down the alien AI and saving Earth. And if that meant sacrificing everything, then so be it. The Titan's wrath cut through space, its massive form a testament to humanity's ingenuity and willpower. Captain Marcus Rhodes stood at the helm, staring at the massive alien dreadnought ahead. It was the final battle, and the stakes could not be higher. The alien fleet, led by the relentless AI-controlled super dreadnought, had ravaged humanity's defenses for months. Now, all that stood between Earth's survival and annihilation was the Titan's wrath, and the crew willing to give their lives to save it. The human battleships converged on the AI-driven dreadnought, each ship cloaking itself to avoid detection. Marcus knew this was their last shot. They had discovered a critical weakness in the alien ship's AI system, a flaw in its defense mechanisms that could be exploited, but it was a race against time. If they didn't strike now, it would be too late. The odds were stacked against them, and the alien ship's formidable technology seemed almost insurmountable. "Prepare for the final assault," Marcus commanded, his voice steady, despite the gravity of the moment. "This is it. Make every shot count." The Titan's wrath fired first, its plasma cannons lighting up the space between them. The beams shot across the vastness of space, a barrage of light that struck the alien ship's shields with a force that shook the stars. The dreadnought's AI quickly adapted, deploying its defense systems with incredible precision. It was clear that this was no ordinary battle. The alien ship was more than just a weapon. It was a living force, adapting and countering every attack. But Marcus had one thing the aliens didn't: human ingenuity and determination. "Focus on the AI core," Marcus ordered. "That's our only chance." The crew of the Titan's wrath responded instantly, adjusting their strategies as they continued their barrage. Every shot, every move, had to be perfectly timed. The human battleships were outnumbered, but they had something the alien forces didn't: a deep understanding of the importance of teamwork and the resolve to fight for a future. The stakes were personal for every single soldier on board. As the battle raged on, the ships engaged in space dogfights, maneuvering through asteroid fields, using the terrain to their advantage. The alien AI-controlled drones fought fiercely, their weapons lighting up the blackness of space. Missiles streaked through the void, exploding in fiery brilliance as they collided with their targets. The humans were relentless, pushing forward with everything they had. "Stay sharp, everyone," shouted Lieutenant Clara, Marcus's second-in-command. "We've got this. Focus." The Titan's wrath was making its way toward the alien dreadnought's vulnerable core, the very heart of the AI's power. Marcus led the charge, leading his crew in a daring attack that would hopefully exploit the weakness they had discovered. The eye was strong, but it wasn't perfect. It had underestimated the human resolve. And now, that mistake would cost it dearly. The battle was escalating into an all-out assault. Plasma cannons tore through the darkness, missiles lighting up the night sky as they streaked toward their targets. Soldiers on the ground fought tooth and nail to board the alien ship, risking everything to plant explosives on its critical systems. There was no hesitation, no fear, only determination. Each soldier knew that the fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. On the Titan's wrath, Marcus's pulse raced as he watched the battle unfold. The tension was unbearable. The alien super dreadnought was a towering behemoth, its weaponry and defenses nearly impenetrable. But the humans had found their weakness, and now it was time to strike. Every decision, every move, had to be perfect. There was no room for error. Plasma cannons, fire! Marcus shouted. The Titan's wrath unleashed another wave of plasma fire, the bright beams cutting through the dark expanse of space. The alien dreadnought's shields flickered under the onslaught, struggling to absorb the incoming fire. Direct hit, Clara shouted, her eyes wide with anticipation. The human forces continued their assault, pushing the alien ship to the brink of destruction. As the battle raged on, the sheer intensity of the combat was overwhelming. Explosions rocked the void, sending shockwaves through space. The Titan's wrath was hit multiple times, its shields beginning to flicker, but it held strong, relentless in its mission. Then, a breakthrough. The alien eye's defense systems began to show signs of instability. Marcus's crew had succeeded in exploiting the flaw in its core defenses. The dreadnought's shields began to fail, and the once impenetrable... "Now's our chance," Marcus yelled, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Fire everything we've got." The Titan's wrath unleashed its full arsenal of weapons, firing everything from plasma cannons to missile barrages. The alien ship's AI tried desperately to adapt, but it was too late. The core systems were compromised, and the dreadnought began to break apart, its once unstoppable power crumbling under the human assault. The explosion that followed was nothing short of spectacular. The alien dreadnought erupted in a burst of fiery brilliance, its death throes lighting up the sky like a dying star. The Titan's wrath and the remaining human ships watched from a distance, their hearts heavy with the weight of victory. The dreadnought was destroyed, but at what cost? As the remnants of the alien fleet began to retreat, Marcus took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The humans had won, but the victory felt hollow. The battle for Earth was far from over. There would be more wars, more enemies, and more sacrifices. The price of victory was high, and Marcus knew that the true cost had yet to be fully realized. "We've done it," Clara said, her voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. "But there's still so much more to do." Marcus nodded solemnly. "This is just the beginning." The victory over the alien dreadnought had been hard-fought, but the war was far from over. The human race had been pushed to the brink of annihilation, but their spirit had prevailed. As Marcus looked out into the vast expanse of space, he knew that humanity's fight was only just beginning. The price of victory had been steep, but Earth had been safe, for now. And so the fight for Earth would continue, the echoes of war ringing through the stars. But as long as there were those willing to fight, humanity would never surrender. The battle was over, but the war was far from forgotten. As the remnants of the alien fleet flood into the vast reaches of space, the Titan's wrath and the human forces surveyed the damage. Earth had won, but the cost was beyond what anyone could have imagined. The space around them, once filled with the deafening roar of weapons fire, was now eerily silent, save for the hum of the human ship's systems. Captain Marcus Rhodes stood on the bridge of the Titan's wrath, staring at the view outside. The stars were beautiful, almost serene, but they no longer brought him comfort. The victory had been hard won, and the scars of battle were all too visible in the faces of the men and women who had fought with him. The Titan's wrath had been heavily damaged, its hull marked by the brutal blows of the alien warships. The human fleet was battered, and many of Marcus's closest comrades were lost forever. It was a victory, yes, but at what price? Marcus's thoughts turned to Lieutenant Bonner, his trusted friend, who had fallen in one of the early battles. Bonner's death had hit Marcus hard. The loss of a friend on the battlefield was something no commander ever got used to. But this war had been different. It had taken more than just soldiers. It had taken families, homes, and entire cities. The war against the alien AI dreadnought and its forces had been humanity's greatest challenge, and they had paid for their survival in blood. He glanced at the crew, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and sorrow. They had done the impossible. They had defeated an unstoppable force. But it didn't feel like a win. The lives they had lost haunted every corner of the ship. The once vibrant and energetic crew now carried the weight of those who were gone. The cheers that had echoed through the ship during their initial victory were now replaced by the quiet murmur of mourning. Standing at the edge of the command deck, Marcus reflected on the enormity of the war. The alien AI had believed that humanity was weak, an insignificant species to be crushed under the might of their technology. But they were wrong. The humans had fought not just for survival, but for the freedom of their home, their families, and the future they believed in. As Marcus stood there, his gaze drifted to the view of Earth in the distance, still a blue marble against the vast emptiness of space. It was beautiful, fragile, and full of life, yet it had been on the brink of destruction. It had survived against all odds, and so had humanity. He thought about the countless cities that had been destroyed, the civilians who had been caught in the crossfire, and the soldiers who had laid down their lives. The price of victory had been staggering, but as Marcus looked out at the scene, he knew that humanity had proven itself. They were no longer just a species fighting for survival. The first rays of the Earth's sunrise pierced through the vastness of space, casting a golden glow over the blue planet. It was the dawn of a new era for humanity, a time to rebuild, to mourn, and to honor the fallen. Marcus stood still, his heart heavy, as he watched the rays light up the Earth, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always hope. He could feel the weight of his role as a leader, a burden that was both a privilege and a responsibility. The war was over, but the work was far from done. Marcus made a silent vow to those who had died, promising to honor their memory and to protect the future of mankind. The war had been a test, not just of their military strength, but of their will to survive, and they had passed. But there was still so much to do. Rebuilding Earth would take time, and the wounds of war would linger long after the battle had ended. Marcus knew that the galaxy was vast, and while humanity had earned its place among the stars, the universe was far from kind. There would be other threats, other challenges, and the lessons learned in this war would be critical for whatever came next. As Marcus stood in front of the window, watching Earth spin slowly beneath the rays of its rising sun, a sense of peace washed over him. It wasn't the peace he had hoped for, but it was a start. The war had cost them dearly, but humanity was still standing, and that was something worth fighting for. The crew gathered around him, silent yet strong. They had all been changed by this war, and while the scars would never fully fade, they had proven that humanity was resilient. It was in their blood, in their very souls, the need to fight, to survive, and to protect the ones they loved. Marcus turned to face his crew. "We did it," he said, his voice strong but filled with emotion. "We fought because we had to. And now we will rebuild because we can." The crew nodded, their faces a mixture of pride and grief. They had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer, and they had come out the other side. The world they had once known was gone, replaced by a harsh new reality. But they would face it together, as a family. As the sun rose over Earth, the light filtering through the darkness of space, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. The fight for survival had been hard, But humanity had proven itself capable of more than anyone had ever imagined. The universe would know that humans were not just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. "We fight because we have to," Marcus said softly, looking out at the sunrise, his words echoing in the silent bridge of the Titan's wrath. "But we remember because we can." The final battle had been won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. They had earned their right to exist, and no one would ever be able to take that away from them. As Marcus stared into the rising sun, he knew that the future was uncertain. But with his crew by his side, and the spirit of humanity's resolve burning brighter than ever, he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Earth had won, and humanity